Hey everyone, welcome to the live. I'm gonna get started in about 10 seconds. We're doing the June 2020 paper 2 higher for GCSE, and it is a calculator paper for the exam on Wednesday. Okay, let's get started with question 1. So question 1, nice question about prime factors. Write 84 as a product of its prime factors. So all you have to do is try and find the factor pairs of 84 and then just break it down. So you've got 84 and you can break that up into, for example, 7 and 12. It can be any two numbers that multiply to get 84. Then 7 is a prime number, so I'm just going to circle that. Then I break up 12. 2 times 6 gives me 12, and I'll circle my primes. 2 is prime as well. Then I break up 6 into 2 times 3, and both of them are prime. So all I have to do is take my numbers that are prime and multiply them together. So then that's equal to 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. And I'm allowed to rewrite that as 2 squared, because I have 2 lots of 2, times 3 times 7. And that is my answer, times 3 times 7. You can do it in many different ways. So you could even do 2 times 42, and then this is 2 and 21, and then this is 3 and 7. And then you still get the same answers either way. Whichever one you find easier, just split it up, break it down, and then see which numbers are prime, and then multiply those together. Now part B, find the lowest common multiple of 60 and 84. And notice we found the prime factors of 84 in part A, so it might have some, you can use what you did in part A to help you in part B. So I'll show you this in two ways. The easy way is literally just list the multiples of them. So the multiples of 60 are 60, 120, 180, 240, 300, 360, 420, and so on. And then the multiples of 84 are 84, 168, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to list them until I find one that has something in common with something from the top list. So then I get 252, 336, and 420. If I notice, 420 is in both. That's the first multiple that appears in both, hence it's the lowest common multiple. And that's my answer. Nice and easy like that. Another way I knew I can do by just listing is because 60 always ends in a multiple of 10. So I need to find a multiple of 10 of 84. So it'll either be 5 times 84 or 10 times 84, 15, 20, or so forth. So this is literally just 84 times by 5, which is how I knew that that would be the one before I went on. An alternate method you could use is using the way you did for part A and doing prime factor decomposition again. So we have 60, and if we break that up, we get 5 and 12, 5 is prime, and then we get 2 and 6, 2 is prime, and then we get 2 and 3. And then we do our Venn diagram, and we see the prime factors we have for this tree over here, and then this tree up here, and write down the ones that appear in both in the center. So I have 2, 2, and 3 all appearing from here, here, and here. And then from my 60, I have just a 5, and from my 84, I have just a 7. Then to find the lowest common multiple, you just multiply all of the numbers you see as they are appearing. So 5 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 7, and you'll get 420 that way too. So both of these methods would get you the marks for that. So this is a nice prime factor decomposition. It comes up a lot. It's a very heavily assessed topic. I just know how to do them using Venn diagrams to find the LCM and doing it by breaking it up and listing too. So that's question 1. Moving on to question 2 is a nice little Venn diagram question. So this is the set of all, this is like the universe, the set of all values for our Venn diagram is just 1 through 10. A is going to be equal to the even numbers, and B is going to be equal to the factors of 10. It's a calculator paper and 2 marks, and it doesn't specify show you're working. Yeah, sorry, if you have any questions, just let me know. Since it's the calculator, just use the fact button. I'd recommend always show you're working in these because sometimes there will be a mark just for showing you're working. They won't give you all the marks just for the answer. So write down the workings, and exactly as Tarana said, it's a calculator paper. So just like show the working so you can guarantee those marks. So what I like to do is I like to label on my diagram too. So this is going to be my even side, and this is going to be my factor of 10 side, just so I know. And I'm going to go through all my numbers 1 through 10 and then decide where to put them. So 1 is not even, but it is a factor of 10, so I'll put that there. 2 is even and is a factor of 10, so put that in the middle. It's at the intersection of both. Then 3 is not even, and it's not even a factor of 10. So that goes outside my circles. Then 4 is just even. 5 is a factor of 10, but it's not even, so it goes there. 6 is just even. 7 is neither. 8 is just even. 9 is neither. And 10 is a factor of 10, and it's also even, because 1 and 10 are both factors of 10. And that is my Venn diagram for a nice 3 marks. So for this one, just go through one by one and decide, is it this? Is it this? If it's neither, put it outside. If it's both, put it in the middle. Just one by one, take it through, and then obviously double check. A number is chosen at random from the universal set, which is all of my numbers. Find the probability that this number is in the set A and B. So this is the intersection, meaning both. So I'm looking at this section here. So the probability that this number is there, well, how many numbers do we have in total? We've got 10 different values in total. So out of 10, how many options do I have that are in the middle? 1, 2. I just have 2 numbers there. So this is just simply 2/10, or I can simplify that to 1/5. In the exam, if you get a probability question like this one, I would recommend don't simplify it unless you're 100% confident in how to simplify it, because they will give you the marks for the unsimplified version as just the 2/10 probability, unless they specify simplify your fraction. If they don't, then you don't need to. That's not what they're assessing. So the main thing here is you need to know that the total is the universal set, and you're counting the numbers here. You're not adding the 2 and the 10. So don't get confused by that. Imagine they're like blocks with the numbers on them. So you're asking how many blocks are in this little batch here out of the total number of blocks in the box. Okay, so that's how you do Venn diagrams. So far, nice 5 marks, good start to the paper. And just try and guarantee the easy marks. And this one is quite a long question. So I'll just freeze on this for a few seconds so you can read it, and then I will jump in and read it myself too. Okay, so by the way, from my experience, most of the time, early on in the paper, there will be like a 4 marker or a 5 marker that's just a lot of text, and they love to assess a bunch of different topics in. It's not going to be overly hard. You just have to break down the paragraph because it's just a lot of words for no reason. So, Carlo put tins into small boxes and into large boxes. He put 6 tins into each small box and 20 tins into each large box. Carlo put a total of 3,000 tins into the boxes, so it doesn't specify, it's overall boxes. The number of tins in small boxes to the number of tins in large boxes is 2 to 3. I like to write out the ratio myself on the side too, so I've got that easily there to refer to. Carlo says that less than 30% of the boxes filled with tins are large boxes. Is Carlo correct? You must show your working. So for this one, you just have to logic it through and just think for a second, okay, if I was Carlo in this case, what would I do? So we need to find out how many boxes are filled with tins that are small and large, and then see the percentage of large boxes that are filled with those tins and the small boxes to see is that 30% correct. So we know that he put 3,000 tins in boxes overall. So let's see how many he puts in each. So if we know that the ratio of the number of tins is 2 to 3, then we get 2 plus 3 equals 5 parts in our ratio overall. So we need to split that 3,000 into 5 parts. So 3,000 divided by 5 equals 600 tins for 1 part of my ratio. Always write down what you found out so you know exactly what the number means so you don't get confused. So we know that 600 tins is 1 part of this. Well, we know for the small ones, we've got 2 parts in our ratio. So that's just simply 2 times 600 equals 1,200 tins. Why is it tins? Because it's the number of tins in small boxes. That's exactly what we just found. Then the large one, how many parts do I have there? I've got 3 parts. So 3 times 600 is equal to 1,800 tins again. And we can just do a common sense check. 1,200 plus 1,800 is equal to 3,000. So we know that, okay, our numbers add up. So far, so good. So now we need to look at what he says. He says that less than 30% of the boxes filled are large boxes. So we know the number of tins, we gotta now figure out the number of boxes. So if we know that a small box can fit 6 tins, how many boxes do we need to fit 1,200 tins? So I'm just gonna do small boxes. I've got 1,200 divided by 6, and in my calculator, or in my head, I get 200 boxes. That's how many boxes, small boxes, I need to put this number of tins in. I do exactly the same for my large, so large boxes. I have 1,800, and how many tins can fit into one large box? Up here it says 20. So I do 1,800 divided by 20, and I get 90 boxes. Okay, cool. So now I know exactly how many boxes of each I have. Carlos says that less than 30% of the boxes filled are large. Well, I need to basically find, is 90 less than 30% of the total number of boxes? So what percentage is 90 of 200 plus 90, my total number of boxes? Well, that's just simply 90 divided by 290 times 5, 100. And I get, when I put that into my calculator, 31.03 blah, blah, blah. And that's roughly equal to 31.0% to 3 significant figures, which I've rounded. And then that's my answer, but I need to have a conclusion. In these types of questions, if they ask you, is someone correct, you need to show like an English, common sense English conclusion. So then you just say, therefore, he is wrong. Why? And you have to say why. Because this is just my shorthand for therefore and because. You can write the words too, obviously. 31% is bigger than 30%. You need this reason and you need your conclusion to get the final mark as well. So this is how you do this type of question. You can see it's not so bad overall at the end. It's kind of like a real life example. You just take it and break it up into parts. This is higher Hannah, yes. But this question could very well be towards the end of a foundation paper because this doesn't assess anything that's just higher content. So this one, not a bad question. Find what your end goal is. Like we've established, we need to find the number of boxes and see how many are large from the get-go. And then just work your way towards it. See the information given, no worries. See the information given, and then just work your way towards the goal. A question like this, or like a wordy question, is guaranteed to come up in the papers. They love doing that with their questions. Real life examples. They're doing that a lot more with the exams nowadays. This is not a foundation paper, but this question could be a foundation type question because it has all the skills needed from that. Awesome, perfect. We will move on to question 4. Question 4 is quite a nice question, in my opinion, because it is graphs. So we are told that complete the table of values for y equals 5 minus x cubed. That's a cubed, by the way. So this one, nice little substitution. What type of ratio question is this? This is like a problem-solving ratio question. It's not mainly ratios. It's about, you need to apply ratios, but is a general, like a problem-solving question, which involves ratios. Okay, so for this one, it's just simple substitution. So here, I'll write down what I type into my calculator. So I need to find my y value. They tell me my x value here. Literally just sub it in. Y equals 5 minus, and then I put my brackets, minus 2 whole cubed. And then that's basically equal to 5 minus minus 8, and I get 13. And I do the same thing here. Just wherever I have my brackets, I replace it with the 0, the 1, or the 2. And then I get 5, 4, and negative 3. What I'd careful in the comments, what you said 5 minus 2 cubed, put the cubed outside the brackets, just in case, because the cube there can flip the sign if you don't want it to be flipped, or not flip it if you do. So make sure you have your value itself separated from the power here. So exactly as I've written it here, this is what you should type into your calculator. Stay away from typing something like this, because this could mess up your answer unintentionally. It's like the bracket is like your little missing box, like your X. Just a little bracket, and then you put what you want inside, just like that. Okay, so these are your values. Nice, 2 marks in the bag. And then on the grid below, draw the graph of y equals 5 minus x cubed for values of x from negative 2 to 2. So that means I don't actually have to worry about this region here and this region here. I can extend my graph there and there, but it doesn't harm my answer. So with this type of graph, it is a cubic. So if you know the general shape of a cubic, it'll help you out. So you can do like a check. Does my graph look right? So even if you don't, literally just plot the points. So you have to plot the points first. Don't just draw the graph out. So -2 along and 13 up. So that is about there. It's annoying that it's like halfway in between. And then you've got -1 and 6 up. So -1 across and then 6 up is there. 0, 5. So 0 and then 5 up is there. 1 and 4. And then 2 and -3 is down here. So these are my points. You have to plot all the points and then draw a smooth curve. Don't do this. What I'm doing here, don't do this because they will not give you the marks if it is like joined like dot to dot. You have to go all in one fell swoop like this. And it's okay if it's not 100% perfect, but try and get it as perfect as you can. What I did there, lifted up my finger, don't do that. That is the answer to this. So that's what it should look like. If you do this and this, in this question, this section here and this section here, they say it's fine if you do that, ignore whatever happens beyond there because the question said from -2 to 2. But if it doesn't, then I would just do it anyway, but obviously make sure it does look appropriate there and doesn't go like across there because that's just weird for this graph. But yeah, that is 2 marks. The mark scheme says make sure it's smooth, don't make it of segments like this, don't draw it like that. And then they say to ignore the endpoints here because the question just says -2 to do. So nice little 4-mark question there on cubic graphs. I would recommend you to learn what the shapes of the graphs are for quadratic, cubic, reciprocal, exponential, all of those, just so when you come to the exam, you can just instantly look at it and write down the answer. In the past, they've asked questions where they've given you, this is a calculated paper, it's for the one on Wednesday. In the past, I saw a question where they were like 12 pictures of graphs and then they had 4 equations underneath. And for 2 marks, you have to match the equation to the graph. So it helps if you know what the shapes of the graph look like beforehand. Just know the general shapes. And it'll like you can come up with different ways to remember them and it'll all be fine. Okay, question 5. In my opinion, this is quite a nice little 2-marker question. There's nothing application based here, it's the standard. So for this one, I've got a right angle triangle. And when I have a right angle triangle, I can do one of 2 things, either Pythagoras or SOHCAHTOA. Go up quickly. Yeah, sure. I'll go for 1 second. By the way, this live is recorded and I will try and upload it as soon as possible onto my YouTube channel afterwards. Is the answer for this 99.1 or something because we use sine? It's not 99.1, it's 99.5, but yes, it is because we use sine there. Yeah, we use sine for this one. Okay, so for this one, I've got an angle. If I have an angle, if one angle, at least, you use SOHCAHTOA. If just 3 sides, you use Pythagoras. That's the rule. Whenever you get a right angle triangle, just know this. This is at Excel exam board. But the question styles would apply to AQA or OCR as well, mostly generally. Okay, so here I've got one angle, which means I'm going to use SOHCAHTOA. So I've got my angle here, and in relation to this angle, just label the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse sides. So opposite, just look across, that is opposite. Hypotenuse is the longest one, the diagonal, so this is hypotenuse, and this is adjacent. I've got O and I've got H, so I know I need to use sine. So sine of x equals opposite over hypotenuse. X is my angle, remember, so I just subbed my angle into my little sine function. So sine of 34 is equal to opposite, which is x. Apologies for putting x there, I'll just call that y. And this is a higher paper, but this question is very much a foundation question, in my opinion. It's just trick. And then my hypotenuse is 178, and the answer wants it to 1 decimal place. So I need to remember to round that to the end. Then all I need to do is find x, right? So I do x equals 178 times by sine of 34, because I'll do the inverse of this. I multiply both sides by 178. And then I get, when I put this into my calculator, I get 99.536 ... and that's equal to 99.5 to 1 decimal place. And that's it, 99.5. Whenever you do this type of question, if they tell you to round your answer, I will always advise write down as much of the answer as you can beforehand, like this, with some dots if you want, not to write the full thing. Then show how you round. Just in case you make a rounding error, you may still get like the last method mark, in case you lose that out too. So write down the full answer, then round afterwards, just so you don't mess up and you can see, have I actually rounded the number correctly? Because you don't want to make silly mistakes just on the very last mark. Also, my top tip, whenever they ask you 1 decimal place or 3 significant figures or in degrees or in centimeters, underline that, and at the very top of the question, even in this nonsense place at the top of the page, just put in big 1 decimal place for what you need to write, because you don't want to lose silly marks like that. And I'm saying this from experience, where I forgot to convert time from hours into seconds and I lost a basic mark. So don't do that. Make sure it's obvious, so you know when you get to the end, have you actually written the answer exactly as they want. Okay, nice little question 6 now is column vector arithmetic. So here it's just about substitution. So I've got 2a minus 3b. I like to rewrite this out just to make sure I've understood what the question is, just so I don't make a silly mistake. And then just replace your a with the column vector 3 and 4, and your b, so minus b, my bad, minus 3 times by 5 and minus 2. And all you have to do is, this is not a predicted paper, this is the 2020 paper 2 higher. But I saw that most of these topics I don't think appeared in paper 1. But yeah. So then all you have to do is the number you have next to your column vector, multiply both the top and the bottom by that number. It's as simple as like multiplying brackets. So 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, so I get 6 over 8. And it's not over as in a fraction, it's just 6 over 8. And then minus, I'm going to keep my negative out, so I'm just going to multiply by 3. So 3 times by 5 is 15, and 3 times by negative 2 is negative 6. Notice I'm doing positive 3 times negative 2 to get negative 6, and this negative is just still outside. I've not multiplied by negative 3, I've multiplied by positive 3. That's where they're trying to throw you off in this question, just to make sure you know how to deal with signs. And now it's just about putting them together. The tops go with the tops, and the bottoms go with the bottoms. So it's just 6 minus 15, and then 8 minus minus 6. So 6 minus 15 is minus 9, and 8 minus minus 6 is 8 plus 6, which is just 14. So my answer is minus 9 and 14. If you want to do more questions like that, I've got a video about column vectors. I think it's one of the first few videos I've made, so just scroll down my page and you'll find a video similar to this style of question right here. But yeah, hopefully this is all making sense so far. I'm loving all the interactions, guys. Keep it up. Okay, question 7. In my opinion, this is one of the longer, first longer type questions. This is a higher paper, but some of the questions are related, could be foundation. Is it more going to be minus 3x minus w2? I don't understand what you mean by that praise, sorry. Minus 3 minus 2x w. Okay, if you want to clarify, just let me know in the comments. The diagram shows a right angle triangle and a quarter circle. The right angle triangle, ABC, which is this, has angle ABC 90, and the quarter circle has center C and radius CB. This is literally just obvious from the drawing. They're just trying to formally say this. Negative 3 times negative 2. Is that this question up here? Yes. So yeah, you can do negative 3 times negative 2. So okay, quickly just going back here. If I do this and I do multiply by negative 3, it would become, the 6 and the 8 stay the same, and this would be a plus negative 15 and 6. Because then I still get 6 plus negative 15 and then 8 plus 6. So this would become a plus because I've multiplied that out. I've gotten rid of that. And yes, Sarah, this is a higher paper. Okie dokie. This is literally just nonsense information. You can ignore it. Don't bother trying to understand it too much. No worries, praise. They're just basically saying the diagram is literally what the diagram looks like in real life. Work out the area of the quarter circle. So they want the area of this thing here. Give your answer to 3 significant figures. What did I say? Put it in big at the top so you know. You must show all your working. Okay, cool. So 3 significant figures. Let's go. What do I need to do? I need to find the area of this. This is an area of a sector. So area of sector or slice, or that's equivalent to, in this case, the area of a quarter of a circle. So you can take either approach, but either approach will literally get you the same answer. So if I focus on area of a sector, the equation which you should know is theta by 360, where theta is your angle because it's like a slice of that circle. The slice is that theta angle. Just times by my area formula, pi r squared. What is my angle here? It's just 90, so that's 90 by 360 pi r squared. And if I simplify that, that's just a quarter pi r squared. And what do we know? That's literally just the area of a quarter circle there. So Yes, that is the answer in the chat. I see it. Awesome. So it's just a quarter pi r squared. So what do we need? We need to just find what r is. Do I know what r is? Nope, but I know this is r. And oh look, this little triangle here has one missing side, and that missing side happens to be r. Because I've got three sides, no angles, like what I said in the previous question, we're going to use Pythagoras theorem, so Pythag. And we know 6 squared plus r squared equals 9 squared. So r squared is going to be equal to 81 minus 36. I've just rearranged and put them to the power of 2 in one step. And that's going to be equal to 45. Therefore, r is going to be equal to the square root of 45. And I am not going to round it. I'm going to keep it as an exact answer. I don't have a degree in maths. I'm in university at the moment, but I have done my A-level maths a couple of years ago and further maths. So I promise you can trust me. Okay, cool. So that's my r, and all I have to do is just sub it into my area formula. So a quarter pi r squared, sub that in, a quarter times by pi times by r, which is square root of 45. So square root of 45 squared, and that's going to be equal to 45 over 4 pi, and they want it to three significant figures. So that is 35.342 blah 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 meters squared, and then I round. Like I said, show your like nonsense numbers there, then round, just in case. To three significant figures. And that is your answer to this question. Nice little question, bit more in like a little bit more intuitive, but overall not so bad. Whenever you get problem solving questions about geometry, it mostly all the time boils down to formulas and piecing a bunch of formulas together. So this topic would be Pythagoras and area of sectors. So yeah, this one is actually just those two topics, areas of sectors and Pythagoras. And then they just combined it. So you gotta use what you know and plug them into a bunch of formulas eventually at the end. So it sometimes helps if you're stuck. Just write down the formulas. A equals pi r squared, and then a squared equals b squared plus c squared, and a equals theta by 360 pi r squared. Just write down everything you know. Sometimes you may get a mark for that. Is it possible for a 6-mark question to appear? 6-mark questions can appear and have appeared in the past. I think there was a question like a Swedes question that was 6 marks, which in my opinion should not have been 6 marks because it wasn't as bad as that impossible circles question from 2022, which was just 5, but they can ask 6-marker questions. They may not, they're less common, but still possible. But you can get a lot of the method marks in those cases. That's why it's 6 marks. This is not foundation, this is higher, but again, I don't see why this wouldn't appear in foundation because it's, again, not too much more difficult. They'll probably be towards the end. Awesome. Question 8. So this is where we start getting a bit more into the calculator stuff. So Tarek buys a laptop. He gets a discount of 5% off the normal price. Tarek pays £551 for the laptop. Work out the normal price. So this is a reverse percentages question. So make a little note, reverse percentage, so I know the topic. And then they want me to find the normal price. What I like to do with these type of questions is I kind of work it, I reverse the reverse percentage. I do it as if I'm just doing a normal percentage. So let my normal price be the letter P. So I've got P, and I have a 5% discount on it. So 5% off that number is multiplying it by 0.95 because that's my discount, that's my decrease multiplier. You have 1, and then you take away 5% as a decimal, which is 0.05, and you get 0.95. So this is 5% off, or 95% of. And the difference between off and of, I'm trying to make it clear. So we know that when you multiply the price by that, you get 551, and it should be quite obvious what we have to do now from this. We just have to divide both sides by 0.95, and we get P is equal to 551 divided by 0.95, and that is going to be equal to £580. And then just see your answer. Does that make sense? Would people sell a laptop for that much? Oh, my bad. 1 second. Would people sell a laptop for that much? Like, is it a nice round number? And do that bit of a common sense check. It does make sense, and then that's my answer. What you can do is nicely check this one. I'd say this first part is a foundation type question, but this whole paper is higher. So what you can do is just check if I have 580 and I multiply that by 0.95, I do in fact get 551, and there, done. That's like my little check. You can also just find 10% of this, 58, 5%, you get 29, and then just subtract that as well. Okay, first part of question, nice little 2 marks of reverse percentages. This is how I recommend doing a reverse percentage, like give a normal price letter, then apply the percentage to it. Okay, now, this is a completely different question. I don't know why they lumped it all in one, probably because it's just percentages. So Joan invests £6,000 in a savings account. The savings account pays compound interest at a rate of 2.4% for the first year and 1.7% for each extra year. So the thing is, with this, it's a compound interest. So this changes upon value of each year. Like, it's not a fixed number like simple interest. So compound interest is about a percentage based on the value of the previous year, Sanya. But simple interest is you calculate that fixed amount and then you just add that on each year. So it's not a percentage, it's a fixed amount. And that's the difference. I think I have a video on compound and simple interest questions in my videos list on TikTok. So you can check that out there too. Okay, so work out the value of Joan's investment at the end of 3 years. Okay, so this is literally just multiplying by increased percentages again. So at the start, I like to map it out nice and clearly. Start, I have £6,000. And she's not losing this money, she is getting paid because the savings account pays this compound interest. So after year 1, I have 6,000 and it's increasing by how much? 2.4%. So as a percentage multiplier, that's times by 1.024. Like this is my tens and this is my ones, and then this is like tenths, like as a decimal percentage. And then I get 6,144. Now this is where the compound bits it. Compound means like building up, right? It's building up. So I'm building onto my 6,144. So year 2 is my 6,144. But now it's not 2.4% increase, it's a 1.7% because it's based on the previous year. So I multiply that by 1.017. Again, that's like 1%, and then that's like my decimals afterwards. And then for my year 3 is the same amount, so then I just multiply by 1.017 again. So I can just do that in one step because you know when you multiply and you multiply again, it's just increasing, hence compound. And then at the end I get 6,354, and I'm going to round straight away, 0.67 to 2 decimal places. That was very unintentional. And the reason I rounded to 2 decimal places is because I'm dealing with money, pounds. So round to 2 decimal places. They will not ever tell you, most of the time, to round a money type question, but you should just know that when you round numbers, it should be to 2 decimal places because that's what makes sense. So then you get 6,354.67 as your answer. So that's a compound question. Remember, compound means building on the previous year. So that percentage, you use the percentage of the previous value instead of a fixed amount being added on each time. Okie dokie. 1 second. Hopefully this is all making sense so far. Okay, I'm going to keep this on the screen for a second for you guys to have a read through while I just have a little sip of water. Okay, box plots question. Aisha recorded the heights in centimeters of some girls. She used her results to work out the information in this table. This is Edexcel, and no, I am British. Aisha drew this box plot for the information in the table. So I've got my least height, my lower quartile, my inner quartile range, my median, and my range. And then this box plot is not fully correct. So Aisha made some mistakes. Write down the 2 things. So that means there are only 2 things that have gone wrong. Aisha should do to make the box plot fully correct. So basically, there's an Aisha in the chat. That's funny. So we got to find out what 2 mistakes she made. So basically, literally just look at the values we have here and then just try and match them up. So the least height is 142. Here, 142 is there. Does that make sense? I've got 10 boxes and an increase in 10. Yep, so 1 box is 1. So this is correct. I'll just tick that. My lower quartile is 154. So that's this line here. And that's at 154, which makes sense. So that's correct. And then I'll just do my interquartile range next. So the interquartile range is the difference between exactly the median is wrong, Rafi. So the interquartile range is the difference between my lower quartile and my upper quartile. Hence, it's the interquartile range. So my upper quartile is going to be equal to 154 plus 17, and that's 171. So my third line, this one, should be a 171. Is it? Nope, it should be here. Well, not that whole thing. It should be, I'll do it in red so you can see, there. So this should be there. So that's my one mistake so far. Continuing on, my median is 162. Well, she plotted 161. So Aisha's second mistake is that it should be here. You can annotate it onto the diagram, but you need to write down the reasons, and because they asked you to. They didn't ask you to fix the diagram. So just in case, write down the answers as well. So we know that this is wrong. And the range, let's just verify that the range is correct as well. So the range is from the least height, 142, to the maximum height. So max is going to be 142 plus 40 equals 182, and that is correct there. Can you explain the interquartile range again? Of course. So the interquartile range is literally just equal to the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. I'll annotate it in blue on this diagram. It is basically just this box. This box part is your interquartile range. That's your IQR. Nice and easy to remember. It's the box part of a box plot. Okay, so what do we need to do? Just write down what you should do to make it fully correct, and don't be lazy when you write this. Write it as if you are advising Aisha what she has to do. No worries. So plot the median at 162 instead of 161. Write down both parts that have been underlined here, because you need to say what her mistake is as well, right? Otherwise, it's not fully clear. Then plot the upper quartile. I'm just being lazy writing UQ. Write down upper quartile in your exam at 171 instead of 172. Again, write down both parts. Okay. Do you feel like paper 2 will be as easy as paper 1? This topic, I think, box plots are foundation. I think so. Okay, so I saw paper 1, like the highlights of it, and it looked pretty nice compared to previous years, which means that the paper 2 or paper 3 could potentially be a bit harder. That's what they like to do. They like to give a nice, easy paper, like one paper that's easier than the bunch, and then the rest will just be like medium or hard. When I did it, I had paper 1 was the hardest. I had the impossible circles question. I was in 2022. And then paper 2 and paper 3 got progressively nicer generally, but they could give you all easy papers. That just means that the grade boundaries could be insanely high. So it depends. Like, you can't really tell. Like, they have been quite unpredictable in the last few years. Paper 1, the thing is, it was easier compared to previous years. It was still quite hard for, like, it's still difficult because it's an exam paper, right? But don't be scared. Just forget about it. Push on. Let's do good for these next 2 papers, all right? You got this, guys. Okay, so that's how we would correct Aisha with her little box plot mistake. Cool. Question 10. I love these type of questions. Whenever I see a question like this, I get so happy because it's just like little quick algebra type questions for 4 marks. So simplify this thing to the power of 0. I'm not going to even read that because anything to the power of 0 is just 1. Write down 1, get your 1 mark, get out of there, move on. Simplify 8 times x minus 4 divided by x minus 4 whole squared. Exactly, it is 1. So here you can see that you're just multiplying stuff on the top and bottom, which means you can simplify by canceling. So you have an x minus 4 here, and you've got 2 lots of that down here, so you just have 1 left. So that's just 8 over x minus 4. I'm just going to write down a visual in case people want to see how that works, like y disappeared, x minus 4, and then you cancel those, and then you get your answer. That's how it works. And then you have simplify this thing here to the power of 3. So I'm going to just zoom in for you. 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. N to the power of 4 cubed. If you've got a power and like you're raising it to a power, you multiply those numbers. So 4 times 3 is 12. So that's n to the 12. And then w squared cubed is w to the 6, because 2 times 3 is 6. So this is your answer. And sometimes it helps, like if you want to do a common sense check on this, I like to write it out. Like, this is why the rule works, because some people just know the rule but don't know why it works. So I'm basically doing I'm just gonna write it out 1 second, 3 and 4 w squared. I'm basically just doing this thing here, right? So I can see I'm doing 3 times 3 times 3 is just 27. I have n times 4, n to the 4, times by n to the 4, times by n to the 4. So I've got 4 plus 4 plus 4. I've got 12 lots of n, so that's n to the 12. W squared, I've got 2 w's here, plus 2 w's here, times 2 w's, times 2 w's. That's w to the 6. So I'm basically, this is what I'm doing, and this is why this rule works. All right. How do you do A? A is literally just anything to the power of 0 is 1. Literally, just anything to the power of 0 is 1. Would you still be able to cancel it out if the numerator was x plus 4 and the denominator was x minus 4? No, you cannot. Thanks, Rafi, for helping. So yeah, because there's no common factors. X minus 4 itself as a whole is a common factor. Can you do a predicted calculator? I'm doing this paper because I felt like this one had like some topics which haven't been assessed yet generally. So these topics can very much come up. Okay, question 11. Jack is in a restaurant. There are 5 starters, 8 mains, and some desserts on the menu. Jack is going to choose 1 starter, 1 main, and 1 dessert. He says there are 240 ways that he can choose a starter, main, and dessert. Could he be correct? So this is a product rule for counting type question. So what you need to do is you need to see how many different combinations you can make with these. And I'm just choosing 1 from each. So for my starters, I've got 5 choices. For my mains, I've got 8 choices. So I multiply them. And for my desserts, I've got some choices. So I'm just going to pick a letter D. And he's telling me that the ways I have of choosing these, I've got 240 ways. Now let's see if this is possible. So 5 times A times D is just 40D, and that's going to be equal to 240. So I'm going to divide both sides through by 40 because I'm doing 40 times D, so I do the inverse. So I do D equals 240 divided by 40, and I get 6. Now, could he be correct? Just check. Does my answer make sense? Is 6 desserts possible? Yes. So I'll just say yes, because there can be 6 desserts. You have to give your answer and a reason. You have to give the reason. So this is a product rule for counting type question, and you have to give a conclusion saying why he could be correct. So why would he not be correct in a question like this if the answer here was not an integer? For example, if it was negative, which would be weird, or if it was a decimal or a fraction, then he could not be correct because you can obviously not have like 2.5 desserts on a menu. All right, this is higher. I am going at like a moderate pace, so it's not too fast, but not too slow for everyone, just trying to match everyone's pace. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Product rule for counting questions come up a lot, so make sure you know how to do them, but they're not too bad once you like get into the practice of it. Okay, awesome. Moving on, question 12. The graph gives information about the volume in liters of petrol in the tank of Jim's car after it has traveled a distance of d kilometers. So this is my volume against distance. When you get a question like this, literally just look at the graph first. Just try and understand what the graph is generally before moving on. So yeah, inshallah, everyone gets 9. Rate of change, blah, blah, blah. Yep, that is the last part for part B, exactly, macrosomic fallacy. So find the gradient of the graph. Well, this one is actually a pretty nice graph they've given us, because if we look at our endpoints, we can see that this comes up here to 27 because each square is 1 unit. And then the part down here comes up to 30. So the gradient is equal to y1 minus y2 divided by x1 minus x2. So let's just say that this is my y1 and x1. So y1 is 27 minus y2 is 0. And then x1 is 0 minus 300. And notice I'm getting a negative, which makes sense because it is a decreasing gradient. So I get minus 0.09. Nice little 2-marker question there. Don't need to bother doing like this triangle and then finding this part and this part, rise over run. No, we don't need to do that. Just do the values given because it's a nice little triangle. And thank you guys for the gifts. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Hopefully this is making sense so far. And then interpret what the gradient is. They love interpretation type questions. So you just need to see what the graph is and just put that in for maths in 2 words. So I will see, I've got my volume is normally the y over the x. So I would write, let's just show this. I'd say the volume, the gradient is equal to the volume of petrol used for each kilometer of distance traveled. And then I get my 1 mark. That's what I'd say. I normally do the y of blah, 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 blah for each x, blah, 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 blah. That's how I like to say it. So there are alternate ways of putting this. So they'd also accept these answers, liters over kilometer. Do not risk this, okay? Don't put liters over kilometer because in my opinion, that's just lazy, kind of. So I wouldn't risk putting something as basic as that. And then you could also say rate of fuel consumption. I think that's similar to what someone said before we started the question. And then, or you could say for every 9 liters, you travel 100 kilometers. Like you can put it into words. But yeah, in my opinion, my version is the safest, and that's like the default answer for something y for each something x. That's how you'd interpret it. Okay, let's just check comments. I only put positive correlation for the paper 1. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to question 13. So this is our first non-right angle triangle in this paper. So when I see a non-right angle triangle, I think of 2, maybe 3 things. I either think of the sine rule, the cosine rule, or this area formula, sine c. So these are the 3 things. So some people are saying, is it sine rule? You guys are 100% correct. So it is going to be the sine rule. Why? You use the sine rule if you've got 2 lengths and 2 angles. You use the cosine rule if you've got 3 lengths and 1 angle. Those are your minimum requirements. So for sine rule, you need 2 lengths and 2 angles. So that's why we're going to use that. So we need to work out the length of AB, which is this side here. So that's going to be x, and give your answers to 1 decimal place. Thank you for the gift, Solo Adam. So we need to find out angle AB. So we need x over sine of 34, because that's my angle opposite the side length, like this for visual. And that's going to be equal to my other side length, 23.8. And oh, look, I'm missing an angle here, but it's not too bad because we know that angles in a triangle sum to 180 degrees. That's just a lazy way of me writing sum. So that's going to be 180 minus 34 minus 26, and I get 120 degrees. Yeah, 120 degrees. So that's going to be over sine of 120. I need to find out what x is. Why is it sine? Because I've got 2 lengths and I've got 2 angles. So I can use the sine rule formula. If I had 3 lengths and 1 angle, then I can use cosine rule formula. And if I involved area at all, I would just use the area formula up there as well. So then I need to find what x is. So I multiply both sides by sine over sine 34. So x is equal to 23.8 sine 34 divided by sine of 120. Put that into my calculator. I get 15.367, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to 1 decimal place. I should have done my little big circle there. And then I get 15.4. And then what's my units? Centimeters to 1 decimal place. And that's my answer on the line. Okay, yeah, 6, 7. So funny, guys. So that is my answer. So I look at my question. I need to work out a length. So I annotated that. I'm explaining it again, by the way, for the person with no name, but back profile picture. So I annotate my missing side as x, because we always do x. And then I see, okay, I've got 2 side lengths and I've got an angle and an angle involved. So I know I need to use my sine rule. And then I will plug my values into my formula, worked out my missing side length because I know angles in a triangle sum to 180. And then I just rearrange my formula, find what x is. And since x is a length, it's centimeters. Okie dokie, nice little sine rule question with a little bit of more because of that angle work. All right, question 14. I will just pause here for a second. This is at Excel while you guys read this. Okay, why did I use the sine rule? Because I had 2 lengths and I had 2 angles. So that's sine rule. Cosine rule would be 3 lengths and 1 angle as my minimum things on my diagram. All right. Exactly. That's the only rule that can be applied. Do you think we are going live for paper 3? I will try to go live for paper 3 as well. I'm going to try and do as many lives as I can in the next few weeks for you guys because, I want to help. Okay. And also, I've got a bunch of videos. When are you going to do AQA? I do mainly at Excel since that's what I've taught, but the questions are applicable between both, I find. So there might be just some nuances here and there for between Excel and AQA, but generally the papers are similar. Am I going to do one tomorrow? I will see if I do one tomorrow. I will post on my, a video saying when the next live is, and it'll also be on my bio as well, so you'll see when the next live times are. But yeah. Okie dokie. Follow if you want to be, subscribe. I appreciate all the follows, guys. Okay, question 14. Here are two squares. The fact that this is a square is very important because it actually makes the question possible. A and B. The length of each side of square B, so length of each side of B is 4 centimeters greater than the length of each side of square A. The area of square B is 70 centimeters greater than the area of square A. Find the area of B. So I just put area of B, so I know exactly what I'm doing. Give your answer to 3 sig figs. What am I going to do? At the top, I put 3 sig figs up there. Might even do it down here as well, so I know when I write the answer. 3SF. You must show all your working. So this question is actually not so bad, like once you look at it, because remember, this dramatic underline, they are squares. So for A, I'm going to let this length be x because I'm original like that. Everyone uses x, so that's gonna be x. They tell me the length of each side of B is 4 centimeters greater than the length of each side of A. So if I know that the length of one side of A is x, the length of one side of B is going to be x plus 4. And because it's a square, all the side lengths are going to be the same. That's why this question is possible. Then they give me another fact about the areas. The area of B is 70 centimeters greater than the area of square A. So area of A is going to be equal to x squared. Then the area of B minus the area of A is going to be equal to 70 because we know that B minus A is 70 greater. This is not scalars actually. I thought it would be scalars, but it's just about algebraic manipulation actually, to be honest. Why x plus 4, not 4x? Good question. Because they say it's 4 centimeters greater. They don't say it's 4 times larger. It's 4 centimeters greater. Greater means you're adding a 4. Okay, so this one, it is just algebra, but then it evolves into a quadratic because you're multiplying side lengths. You'll see why. So we know that the area of B is just x plus 4 squared, because that's the area of a square, minus the area of A, which is just x squared, and that's going to be equal to 70. And now you can see we're trying to solve for a quadratic. Exactly, guys. Why did you call it x squared? Oh, because I called my side length of A x. Let the length be x. You can call it L, you can call it whatever, but you know that that times that is your area, so it's something squared. Okay, now I'm just going to expand out really quickly. X squared plus 8x plus 16 minus x squared equals 70. And then, oh look, your x squared minus x squared, your like terms, they go away. So then you've got 8x plus 16 equals 70. You don't even have to deal with a quadratic anymore, guys. So then you get 8x is equal to 54. And no, that is not divisible by it. You have to use your calculator to get 6.75. So that is x. Now, don't think you're done. What have we found? We have found the side length of A. What do we need to find? It's exactly what I wrote here, the area of B. So the area of B is equal to x plus 4 squared, which is equal to 6.75 plus 4 squared. And if I put that into my calculator, I get 115.625. But oh look, my little note tells me I needed the 3 sig figs. So that's 1/1/3 sig fig there. Look at the value next to it. 6, round up. 116 to 3 significant figures. And that is my answer to this little 4-mark question, which actually didn't end up being too bad. Okay, let's see 6, 7 again. Yeah, when I was looking at this, there were a lot of 6, 7s. How do you know when to form a quadratic equation? Sometimes it just appears. Sometimes a quadratic equation appears. Normally, if you got algebra and you're multiplying something, like an x by an x, you will get a quadratic. And if you're solving for the x, then you're going to get a quadratic equation, which you need to solve. How do you get the line after 70? The line after 70? Oh, this one. Oh, this one here. So for this one, area of B minus area of A is 70 because of my fact the area square B is 70 centimeters greater than the area square A. And then the area square B is this part minus the area square A, which is that part. And we know that difference is 70. So that's how I got that there. Quadratics is boring, but they are easy marks, so I'm not complaining. Well, generally easy marks. They're just similar process. This topic is forming quadratic equations using shapes. Kind of, yeah. You're forming quadratic equations. This one's just like a general problem solving. This one's just know what a square is, and that will help. But yeah, as you can see, we didn't actually end up needing to deal with a quadratic in the end, but we could have. And if we did, if you got a negative number, you would obviously know to discard that negative number because x cannot be negative silent. Okie dokie. Moving on to question 15. I'll be honest, when I saw this question, I did not like it as a type of question. Before we start, just put what transformation you think this is in the chat. I want to see what you'll get. Like just the name of the transformation. Don't need to put all the details. So let's see if you can recognize it straight away by just looking at this. I see some reflections. I see some enlargements, rotations, enlargements. Okay, that's why I hated this question, because I also had to look at it for a second and think what the heck type of transformation this would be. If you said enlargement, you are correct. It is only an enlargement. It cannot be both. It could be a series of transformations. Technically, yes, Helia, but this question wants the single transformation. So if you say it's a rotation followed by an enlargement, then you would get 0 marks because they just want a single transformation here. If it said describe the transformations that map it, then potentially you could do 2 transformations if you find it. But here, most of the time, they would just say single, and there's only one. Now, this is an enlargement. If you see a size change, it is an enlargement. It is not going to be a reflection or a rotation. If the size is the same, then it'll be a reflection or a rotation potentially. But if you see a size change, it is always going to be enlargement. Would you get 1 mark if you said 2? I will show the mark scheme at the end of this question actually, so we can see what it looks like, okay? So, didn't notice the size. Yeah, so just count the squares. So here you've got 3 squares, you've got 2, so you've got an enlargement going on. So that's your hack. If you see a size change, it is enlargement. If there's some rotation, it is a negative enlargement. And that's how you open up. If there's no size change, then it could be a reflection or a rotation, and then you got to do a bit more work for that. Okie dokie. So I'm going to write it is an enlargement. Unfortunately, I still don't have 1 mark yet because they give you marks for the things we're about to find out. So the easy part is I need exactly enlargement, close, not scale factor 1.5. That is the trick part. It is scale factor of negative 1.5 because you can see it's kind of gotten reflected backwards. So enlargement by a scale factor of negative 1.5. How did I get that? Well, my side length here, just pick a side, is 2 squares. Side length here is 3. How am I going to get from 2 to 3? I multiply by 1.5. So my scale factor is times negative 1.5. Now I've got a mark. Now, what is the other part of an enlargement thing? I need to find the center of enlargement. I'm lazy, so I'm writing COE, but you can write center of enlargement. And if I used to hate finding centers of enlargements, but I found like the trick of actually working it out is not so bad. How do I know it's negative? Because it's gone in the opposite direction. So I know my center of enlargement is going to be in like this general middle space somewhere. This can definitely come in higher. This is a higher question. If it was a positive enlargement, it would probably be up there, and then your center enlargement would go like there. So when you look at these enlargement type questions, think physics. It's kind of like physics like ray diagrams. So I'm going to take each of these points. So this is my easiest point, right? And here, that's my corresponding point. So just listen to me as I go. I'll not look at the comments for a second. I'll just explain this. So you need to map the corresponding points to each other with lines, find where they intersect. That is your center of enlargement. And you need to do straight lines. You guys have got rulers, so that makes it much easier. But obviously, let's just see if I can do this free-handed. So you take your line, you start there, and we want to end up there. And I just make sure I go through my center of enlargement to illustrate the point. Boom. Okay, there's my first line. Then this is my second point. We're going to call that X. And I need to find what X is here. X is going to be this one, because logically, it's like flipped downwards, so this one was still mapped to this one. You gotta like visualize it a bit. Then you need to map those, so I will just go up, And you can kind of already see where the center of enlargement is going to be. This one here, for spoilers. Then we're just going to confirm with our last one. So this one, we're going to call it alpha for fun. And then this one is alpha, the image. And then notice it's literally just a straight line. But where do all three of these lines, all three of them meet at? This point here. That is my center of enlargement. 1, 1. And that is all you have to do to find it. It's as easy as that. Just pick the corresponding points, draw a line between them. Pick the other corresponding points, draw a line. The hard part is picking the correct pairs of corresponding points. Sometimes the lines don't cross over. Their lines will always cross over at one point. Otherwise, we don't actually have a point of enlargement, Rafi. So it has to always cross. All three of them will cross. If they don't, then you may have picked the corresponding points incorrectly, in which case just swap the corresponding points you've picked and then go the other way. So let's say I picked my x and my alpha wrong, then I wouldn't get them meeting. Then, I just draw them the other way around. So the way you get the 2 marks is you get the scale factor of negative 1.5. Where did I get the negative 1.5? Let's first say I got the 1.5 because the side length goes, side length, it's not let me write, side length, and it's from A on to B, so I know I'm going from here onto here, so make sure you go the correct way. Is from 2 to 3. How am I going to get from 2 to 3? I multiply by 1.5. And because it is kind of flipped and it's not gone like in this direction up here, it's gone in the opposite direction. That's how a negative enlargement works. It is going to be a negative 1.5. Then my center of enlargement, pick your corresponding points, join them up, find their intersection, boom. Probably the harder 2 marks in this paper is question 15 for a reason. It's not so nice. I don't like these questions. I would be annoyed if this question came up, but now you know how to tackle this. So if it does come up on Wednesday, I expect all of you to get these marks, guys. Okay, we got this. I will show the mark scheme so you can see where they give you the marks. So question 15. So here you get 1 mark for the enlargement scale factor and 1 mark for the enlargement center. Unknowingly, it's mean that they don't give you 1 mark for identifying it's an enlargement. Award no marks if more than 1 transformation is given. Like I said, they wanted a single transformation, which is mean. I don't like them. But yeah, in my opinion, that should have been at least like a 3-marker question, kind of, because identifying it's an enlargement was a bit tricky, but just noticing one's bigger than another does kind of give it away. Okay, so that was the mean scale factors question. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Hopefully I explained it well. We are going to move on to question 16, quadratic sequences. I have a video on quadratic sequences on my TikTok page, so you can check it out afterwards if you still want to see how to do it. But let's get on to this. Can you do algebraic fractions? I don't get it. Do we have any algebraic fractions coming up? We have some algebraic fractions coming up in question 20. It's an evil question. I think that's it. But yeah, so you'll get some practice there. And if you still want, I've got a bunch of videos on algebraic fractions too. So just check them out too, Alina K. Okay. Question 16. Here are the first 5 terms of a quadratic sequence. So it's not a linear sequence. Can you do vectors questions? What would you predict F5 would be? I'm not sure what I like the grade boundary predictions as well, because like paper 1 has just happened. But looking at the trend, they'll probably increase from 2025. 1 second, I just got to verify that I'm still doing this live for TikTok by just doing the puzzle. Okay. So quadratic sequence could come up for 4 marks if it is a harder one, but they're quite standard. There is a standard way of solving them, so most likely they'd be 3 marks. They could be nice and give you 4. It depends on what they give the marks for. So for this one, 3 marks. Let's get right into it. Find an expression in terms of n for the n term of the sequence. So here it looks like an squared plus bn plus c. That's what the quadratic sequence nth term formula looks like. So we need to find this. I'm going to write down all the steps so you can visually see it. Find the second difference because it's quadratic. Then have it, like half it. Okay, so I will write out my sequence 10, 21, 38, 61, 90. And then I do from 10 to 21, that's plus 11, that's plus 17, plus 23, plus 29. Now we should see that this second difference is a linear sequence where you're just adding 6 each time. So I take my second difference, which is 6, and then halve it, which is 3. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Therefore, a is going to be equal to 3. That's my coefficient of n squared. So then I get 3n squared so far. And now this is always going to be the same step following on. So I will take my original sequence, which is this. So orig, I like to rewrite it out, 10, 21, 38, 61, 90. And so far I'm saying my sequence is 3n squared. But I know it's not that because I've got a bit missing. So I'm going to subtract this 3n squared sequence from my original sequence to find out what's missing. So I like to write out what n squared is first. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. And then multiply that as a 5, not an 8. And then I do 3n squared. So I just multiply these by 3. I can ignore this now, that's nonsense. Then I need to find the difference from my original to this. So I will subtract it because I've got less things in this sequence. So 10 minus 3 is 7. That's 9. That's 11. That is 13. And that is 15. All I've done is this, subtract this. And then all I have to do is, now I've got a linear sequence here. From 7 to 9 is 2. 9 to 11 is 2, 2, and 2. So we can use our dino method. Di stands for difference. What's my difference? 2. Put my n. How do I get to the original term? From 2. 2 to 7, I plus 5. So I have got 2n plus 5 here, and I've got 3n squared here, and I know that the difference between my 3n squared and the original is I'm just adding 2n plus 5. So my overall sequence is 3n squared plus 2n plus 5. And that is how you do a nice little quadratic sequences question. You don't need to know the details of like why the proof is the proof, just know the general steps. And I like to lay it out like this. At least it guarantees me getting all the marks, and it's the same. Just regurgitate the rule each time. Okay, so for n squared, how do you know it's 1 for, because n is going to be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, because nth terms are from 1 onwards, right? So n squared, I've literally just squared each of those terms. Like that. How did I get the 5? How did I get the 5? Good question. So this is my new sequence. So we can see that's 2, plus 2, plus 2. So I use the dino method for the nth term of a linear sequence. So it is increasing by 2 each time. So that's why it's not negative 2n plus 5. It's increasing by 2. So the difference is plus, like an implicit plus, 2n plus 5. How am I getting from 2 to 7? My difference to my original term. 2 to 7, you plus 5. That's why you've got the plus 5 there. And you know that you're adding this whole thing on because you've done like the big piece, the original is my big piece. My 3n squared is my small piece. And then I found this bit remainder, which is my 2n plus 5. This is like my visual. So we can see that this and this together plus give me this. That's how like I visualize it. Please visualize it for the thing. Okie dokie. So I will explain this, just go through it one more time, the steps, but this live is recorded and I will post it as soon as possible. This is the 2020 paper 2 higher at Excel maths paper, calculator. So when you get a quadratic sequence question, you need to find the second difference and then have it. Let me just pull up my solutions thing. So, because I wrote it a bit more. I wrote more words on that. So, here you go. So I have a video on these, so check that out as well afterwards. So you find the second difference and then have it. So the second difference is 6, halved it is 3n squared. Then you take your original sequence, 10, 21, 38, 61, subtract the new sequence of the 3n squared that we've just found, and find the new sequence from the differences. So the differences is this thing down here, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. And we can see that that is just a linear sequence. We're expecting to get a linear sequence in this part because we overall have a quadratic sequence. So it will give you a linear sequence. If you don't get a linear sequence here, you have done something wrong. Then you just find the nth term of the linear sequence, and you see my 2 blue circles here and here. You piece them together, and then you can just check by substitution your answer. So I've got 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 2, which is 5, plus 5, which is 10. That is my first term. Nice. And then you can just check 2, which works as well. Okay, that is how you do quadratic sequences. I've got a video on my page if you want to check that out after. But yeah. Okie dokie. Question 17. Write down the coordinates of the turning point of the graph y equals x plus 12 squared minus 7. They have been nice. Exactly, I'm seeing the correct answers in the chat. It is a 1 marker. You should be able to instantly tell me it is this. I have a rule of remembering which way around it is. So firstly, great. It's just gone back to the top. 1 second. Sometimes my iPad does this. I don't know why. So the answer is -12, -7. I have a rule. You need to get this into completed square form, which is completed square plus minus or something. Most likely it's going to be a minus here. It's like the brand Calvin Klein. That's how I remember it, CK. So here you change the sign of the number in your brackets. So change +12 to a -12, and then keep the sign of your second one. So K, keep -7, big stays as -7. It's dumb, but that's how I used to remember it. If you want to understand why it's that, well, this is a positive quadratic, so your thing is a happy face, and then your turning point is like there. So that is your lowest y. How am I going to make my y lowest? Well, I've got an equation for y, which is this thing here. To make this really small, the only thing I could do is change my x. So this could be 0 as my smallest. So at x equals -12, this thing here equals 0. So y overall is -7 as my smallest. And oh look, that's my answer. So that's how you understand it using the graphs. And you can also have the cheat way of doing Calvin Klein CK, change, keep the signs. Okay, cool. Nice 1 marker. Question 18. I'm going to, again, keep this on the screen for you guys to have a little read through. This question is actually not as bad as it seems. You did this question today. Yes, this is higher. And this question is not bad. They love cones questions, at Excel especially. Towards the end of the paper, I have the number of times I see a cones question. Every time in my mind, I'm like, cone. But they're actually not bad. They're just really repetitive. Either they'll ask you something to do with the volume of one cone inside a larger cone or surface areas. This one is surface areas, and it's in relation to a bigger cone. So you can tell we've got something to do with scale factors coming up because you've got similar cones. Okay, let's jump right into this one. Bit of a longer question, but it's not so bad. Do you expect these questions to come up in a year 10 mock? Year 10 exams are based on what your school wants. So your school could very well give you whatever they want, whatever they've covered. So it's up to the discretion of whatever your teachers give. If they decide to use last year's paper, like the 2025 paper, they may do that. This is 2020 paper, so it may not, but it's up to your school if it's a year 10 mock. Okay, the diagram represents a solid cone. The cone has a base diameter of 20 centimeters. It is the diameter, not the radius, and a slant height of 25 centimeters there. A circle is drawn around the surface of the cone at a slant height of 10 centimeters above the base. There's my circle drawn there. The curved surface of the cone above the circle is painted gray, clearly. Work out the area of the curved surface of the cone that is not painted gray. So we need the area of this curved part here that is not painted gray. It is not letting me undo. 1 second. Just save it. Okay, cool. Give your answer as a multiple of pi. So I'm going to write up here, multiple of pi. So I know that that's what my answer is meant to be like. You must show all your working. Duh. So we need to find the area of the surface area of the smaller cone on top and the surface area of the overall cone and subtract the smaller surface area. That's how all these questions tend to pan out. I know I can ignore this base part here that I've just shaded in because they just want the curved surface. So I can ignore that. If they did, want that, it'll be a bit of extra work, but that's just adding pi r squared. Not too bad. This is 2020 paper 2 higher at Excel. Okay, so I'm going to write curved overall minus curved gray. That's my framework of my working. So curved overall, so area overall is going to be equal to my formula which they've given me, pi RL. What is my radius overall? Is my diameter is 20, so my radius is 10. Don't fall for that trick. And my slant length is 25. So that's just simply 250 pi. And by the way, I did see someone put the correct answer in the chat above. You are correct. Then the curved gray. The area is going to be equal to pi RL, and this is where you've got a bit of work. So pi, what is my radius? Well, that's this part here. That's the radius, but they've not given me the radius, so I need to figure it out. They've given me this slant height of 10, so we know that this is going to be 25 minus 10, 15. So I can figure out using scale factors, the scale factors between my large cone and my small cone. And it's a linear scale factor because I'm talking about the lengths, not the surface areas. Hence, I'm dealing with linear. So my linear scale factor, I'm going to put that on the side, and do write these down. Don't just magically appear a scale factor. Show you're working. You're going from 15 here on the small one to 25 on the large one. So from 15 to 25, you are just multiplying by 5 over 2. 5 over 3, my bad. How do I know that? That's just 25 divided by 15, and then you get 5 by 3. So to go from 12, which is my... So to go from something to 20, which is this diameter here, so d to 20, I'm multiplying by 5 by 3. So to find out what d is, I just do 20 divided by 5 by 3, because inverse, going backwards. So 20 divided by 5 by 3 gives me 12. So my radius is not 12, my diameter is 12, my radius would be 6. Then my slant length is 15, which I figured out. That's going to be equal to 90 pi. So now I've got my surface area of my overall, and my surface area of my curved gray. What did they want? They want the area of the curved not gray. So then that's just simply the curved plus 250 pi minus 90 pi equals 160 pi. Did they want it in terms of pi? Yes, they did. And that is my final answer. So not a bad question. It's just about scale factors and areas. Just don't get confused between what a diameter is and what a radius is. That is a very silly mistake to make. Don't make the mistake, guys. Remember, diameter, radius. Always look out in circle type questions where you've got those. Just like common sense check, like a double check. Okay. I like mensuration. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Could you explain the linear scale factor again? Yep, sure. So linear scale factor, I like to map it out this way, from one arrow to another. It makes it clear. So from 15 to 25, how am I going to get from here to here? I'm going to multiply by a bigger number than 1. So all you have to do is take your final answer and divide that by your original answer. So my final answer is 25. Divide by my original is 15 is 5 by 3. So I know I'm multiplying 15 by 5 by 3 to get 25. And I'll just do a little check. 15 times by 5 by 3, I should get 25, and I do. So there, my scale factor clearly works out. So to go from this way to this way, I multiply by 5 by 3. So to go backwards, I do the inverse. I divide by 5 by 3. That's how scale factors work. Scale factors comes up a lot throughout all types of questions. I'm glad I'm helpful, Rafi. I'm really happy. Okie dokie. Question 19. I think a question like this did come up in your paper 1. Correct me if I'm wrong. Similar to this. But I'm going to go through it anyway. I might just go through it a bit faster, just in case, because this is at Excel. So a hot air balloon is descending. The height of the balloon n minutes after it starts to descend is hn meters. Just know the notation over here. Don't get confused by it. The height of the balloon n plus 1 minutes after it starts to descend is h of n plus 1 meters. And that is given by this formula here. H of n plus 1 equals k times h of n, which is the height n minutes, plus 20, where k is a constant. I see that I've got a missing k, so I'm probably going to need to find that at some point in this question. Oh no. The balloon starts to descend from a height of 1,200 meters at 9:15 And at 916, the height is 1040 meters. So it's descending, is going down. So we know it's going to be a decrease in height. And we can clearly see 1200 to 1040 is a decrease. Work out the height at 918. So step 1, write down the information you've been given. So the height at 915, so h at time n, which is 915, is going to be equal to 1200. H at 916 is going to be equal to 1040. Well, I know a rule to go from h of n to h of n plus 1. So this is h of n, and this is h of n plus 1. And we know that the formula is k lots of h of n time plus 20. So we know that 1040 is going to be equal to k times h of n, which is 1200, k plus 20. So now all I have to do is solve for k, so that's 1020 equals 1200k. I've subtracted 20 from both sides, and then I divide through by 1200, so that's 1020 by 1200, and I get 17 by 20. So then I can just say that my formula for h of n plus 1 is going to be equal to 17 by 20 h of n. I apologize if my h's and n's look very familiar. That is a problem I have all the time. So that is my rule now, and all I need to do is just simple iteration, exactly. So h of 917 is going to be equal to 17 by 20. The previous value is n. What is my previous value? This over here. So times by 1040 plus 20. That's going to be equal to 904 meters. I'll explain it one more time after I've done the question, Alina. And then h of 918 is going to be equal to the same thing again, but use my new value. So 904 plus 20, that's going to be equal to 788.4 meters exactly. And that is my answer. So I'm going to explain this one more time now that everything's on the screen. So I've got my rule for h of n plus 1 over here. And then they've given me some values. So at h of 915, n is my time, minutes after it starts to descend, is 1200. So I've just stated that fact. And h at 916 is 1040. So I've stated that fact here. So if I know that h of n and h of n plus 1 are related through this relation over here, let's say that this is h of n and this is h of n plus 1 because it's one more minute after the previous one. That's just my notation. And then here's my rule, which is exactly what they've told me. So I know what h of n is, 1200, because that's just the minute before. So h of n plus 1 is the value at the minute after, which is 1040. So I go 1040 equals k times my h of n, which is 1200k from this value up here, and then plus 20. I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides to solve for k. So 1020 equals 1200k. And then here I'm multiplying k by a number. So to find k and split it from something being multiplied, I do the inverse, which is division. So I do 1020 divided by 1200. That gives me 17 over 20 in the simplest form. So now I'm going to rewrite my formula where I know the value of k here, because remember I said it's missing, so we probably had to find it, and we did. So h of n plus 1 is equal to 17 by 20 h of n plus 20. Now I need to find the height of the balloon at 918. I know the height at 915. I know the height at 916. Let's find the height at 917. Height at 917 is 17 over 20 multiplied by the height at 916, because that's h of n, because it's one before the one we're currently on now. That's how this iteration notation works. Times by 1040, which is 916 height, plus 20 is 904. And then I do the same for 918. Multiply them and add 20 and get my answer. I don't think this will come up. Yeah, I doubt this will come up either, but the main thing is the notation here, which is what the important part is. It's very unlikely to come up in the same sense, but they can give you, this is a iteration topic, but this is not like, this topic is a bit weird in the sense that it just looks weird compared to the other GCSE topics. It just looks weird. But what I hope you understood from my explanation is how to work with the notation. This notation tells you the value of the next one based on the value of the current one. And that's how you just work through it. Okay, cool. Question 20. In my opinion, this question was a bit of a fudgy one. Not fudgy, but like you gotta do a bit more problem solving in this. It's not a standard question, but it makes sense since it is the third last question of this exam. Okay. They always love probability sweets questions or discs questions, and they annoy me. So with this, just visualize, imagine you are Sajid and visualize what is happening, okay? So there are only red sweets and yellow sweets in a bag. There are n red sweets and 8 yellow sweets in this bag, so I like to write it out. Just so it's easier, I've separated my information. Sajid is going to take at random a sweet from a bag and eat it. Shocker. He says that the probability that the sweet will be red is 7 out of 10. So I like to write that down as well. So P of red is going to be equal to 7 out of 10. Oh, wait, hold on. Don't write that out. Don't write that out. Show why the probability cannot be 7 out of 10. Okay, so you can write that out. And if you do, then just strike it through. It's not that. This is a probabilities question. So show why the probability cannot be that. So just write down what we have. In the bag, we've got n red and 8 yellow. So how many sweets do we have in this bag in total? We've got 8 plus n total sweets. So the probability of red is going to be equal to something over the total, which is n plus 8. I've just switched those. And is the number of reds out of the total. How many reds do I have? N. So n by n plus 8. Now I need to say why it cannot be 7 over 10. So let's just say it is equal to 7 over 10. That's what he's telling me. He says it's going to be equal to that. That's a 10, not a 6. So let's solve for n. So if I multiply both sides by 10, I get 10n, and I multiply both sides by n plus 8. I just cross multiply. I get equal to 7n plus 56. I've just done 7 times n plus 7 times 8, and I get that. Then if I subtract n from both sides, 7n from both sides, I get 3n is equal to 56. And then I get n is going to be equal to 56 by 3. Now, in the chat, tell me, what is my conclusion going to be from this? Why is this weird? How am I going to prove that it's not this probability? Because you get 1 mark for actually saying the actual reason. So you are up to 2 marks at this point. Exactly. N is not a whole number. So n is not an integer. I'm lazy, I'm writing the one-word way. And you cannot have a fraction sweets. Because n is the number of red sweets, and you cannot have 56 over 3 sweets in a bag. Okay, so it's impossible. There, done. We've proved Sajid wrong. So Sajid is just going to continue eating these sweets. So he has taken the first sweet from the bag and has eaten it. He's going to take at random a second sweet from this bag. This is a higher question. Given the probability, so now they're telling us, given the probability that both the sweets will be red is 3 over 5, work out the number of red sweets in the bag. You must show all your working. I don't think there are any vector questions in this paper, but if you check on my TikTok page after the live stream, there's a hard vectors question in there somewhere, like a vector geometry question, which should help Joel. Okay, so for this one, this is my fact, so I am going to write this down. So the probability of red and red is going to be equal to 3 over 5, because that's what they tell me. So for this, I like to draw a little diagram. So, well, not diagram, but like laid out neatly. So for the first one, no worries though. So for the probability of red, we know it's this thing up here. We don't need to do any extra work. We know that we've got n red sweets and out of n plus 8 total. So that's the probability of red. But now Sajid has taken one out and he has eaten it. So we've taken one, and one red. So you minus one red and you minus one from the total. So then the probability of red, again, for the second one, is going to be equal to n minus 1 divided by n plus 8 minus 1, which is just equal to n plus 7. So I know that the probability of red and red is going to be equal to n over n plus 8 times by n minus 1 divided by n plus 7. So if I just multiply my fractions, now this is algebraic fractions for the person who was asking before. So for multiplication, you multiply the numerator by the numerator, so that's n squared minus n. and the denominator by the denominator. So I'd reckon this is like a grade 8 to 9 type question, 7 to 9 type question, because it is algebraic probability problem solving. Combines a bunch of topics. And quadratics, as you'll see why. Then I do this times by this, so that's n squared plus 15n plus 56. I've just done expanding the brackets on that part. And I know that that is equal to 3 over 5 because of my fact. When I was planning this, I kind of forgot that that was a fact. I went off on a bit of a tangent trying to figure out how to solve this. But nah, they give you the fact, so it is possible. By the way, this question is worth 5 marks. This part B is quite a long one. So if I know this, what is my goal? Just go back to the goal again. Work out the number of red sweets in the bag. Well, I said red sweets was n, so I just need to solve for n. So I've got a quadratic fractional algebraic equation. So I'm going to cross multiply here and here. So I get 5n squared minus 5n equals 3n squared plus 45n plus 168, I believe. Yes, that is correct. And exactly, Joel, solve for n. So I'm going to rearrange my quadratic to be nice. So I get 2n squared minus 50n minus 168 equals 0. These are all multiples of 2. So I'm just going to divide by 2 to make it easier for myself. Minus 84 equals 0. And now I use the quadratic equation, the quadratic formula, just to solve for n. Write it out. I don't care if it is simple, but you don't want to lose out silly marks just by not writing it out. It'll take you 5 seconds. And then plug it in. So you get 25 plus minus square root of 25 squared minus 4 times by a times by c, which is negative 84, divided by 2, because a is 1. I plug that into my calculator with the plus, and I get 28, and with my minus, I get negative 3. It is not going to be this. It is going to be this, because we cannot have negative 3 sweets. So I have 28 reds in my bag because n was my number of red sweets. That's what I set it out as. An alternate way would be finding the total number of sweets and then just subtracting the number of yellows, but this way, in my opinion, makes more sense. Just check the comments. Basically, thank you for helping out in the chat, Joel. Yes. Perfect. So this question was not too bad overall, but it is just a lot of topics in one, which is why it's worth 5 marks. So I'll go through the bottom one more time real quick. So for this one, I know the probability of red at my first one is n over n plus 8. If I've taken 1 red, I have 1 less red and 1 less in my bag. So I get n minus 1 divided by n plus 7. Just take away 1 from top and bottom. I know if I get this, then this, you multiply, because that's how probabilities work. If you do something followed by something, you multiply. If you multiply those and expand that out, you know that that is going to be equal to 3/5. That is the fact they've given you. Then you just have to solve this quadratic by cross-multiplying and simplifying your fraction into a non-fraction thing here. And then solve for n using the quadratic formula. I use the quadratic formula because it's just foolproof and it's quicker. You can also solve by factorizing since you get 2 integer answers, so it's not too bad. But I'd always recommend just doing it this way. It's foolproof. And then solving it, getting your 2 answers, and just putting an X or saying cannot be negative. Then state your final answer, therefore 28 red sweets on your line down there. For 5 marks. Not too bad. It is paper 2 higher 2020 yet Excel. Yeah. Okay. We are almost done with this exam paper in good time. The 2020. Not too shabby. Yeah, of course, Stems. I am just going to have a little drink because my mouth is dry. So you can look at this question in the meantime. Just give me 10 seconds. Good question, Mia. So when you multiply probability, when you've got one event followed by another, and then you add probabilities when you've got the technical term, mutually exclusive events. So it's kind of, I like to visualize this with a tree diagram. So it always goes back to, one second, tree diagrams. So if you're going across, you multiply the probabilities. And if you've got several results, you add the probabilities, because this event, imagine you win and you win, or you win and you lose. Win and win cannot happen at the same time as win and lose. But win and win can happen together, win and lose can happen together, hence you multiply them. This is like my visual diagram of how to know when to multiply and when to add. I don't get algebraic fractions. Do you move to the right? Yeah, that's the next one. For 21, do you reflect the graph in the y-axis? For question 21, do you reflect it in the y-axis? Exactly, yep, that is correct. Algebraic fractions. So with algebraic fractions, they work exactly the same way as normal fractions with the rules for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. All you need to be able to do is just do the algebra on the tops or on the bottoms. So get a worksheet, do some practice on those. Initially, just do basic algebraic practice. That's what I recommend. Then introduce the fractions in and see how it works to combine it. That's how I recommend building up. So, question 21. They like these types of questions and they like to make these graphs really obnoxious. One year I saw a random graph that looked like this, and it looked like part of an A-level further maths type graph. But you don't need to know any of that. You just need to know what the transformation is. This is the Files app called Barcelona. This is literally like PDF from Files. So that's what I'm using right now. Okay. So, graph transformations. Nice questions if you know your transformations. Memorize the rules if it helps. If you can't understand it, literally memorize what the patterns are and go with that. So, the graph of the curve with the equation y equals f of x is shown on this grid. They don't actually care what this equation is. On the grid above, sketch the graph of the curve with the equation y equals minus f of x. So, sorry, my bad, I read that wrong. F of minus x, that's the important part. So here, the x is becoming negative. So x is becoming negative, and because it's like this, x is negative, it's a reflection in the y-axis. That's how I like to visualize it. Else, just remember where the negative sign is and what that means. So it's a reflection in the y-axis, so this is my mirror line, and I'm taking this graph, and I'm reflecting it over here. So just make sure you go through the correct, like the key points. So this point here reflects up there. This point here reflects there. This point here reflects here. And then my last point there will reflect at the top, like that. So just make sure you go through those key points. That's what the mark scheme says. And make sure your line is smooth. Like, don't just lift it off the page like what I just did. But yeah, that is what your smooth line should be. Again, don't do like a dot to dot. Nope, we don't want that. Do a smooth line. It's fine if it's a little bit out, but make sure it's as good as you can do it. And my recommendation, do it slightly lightly, just so if you need to rub it out, it's not too hard and it's not seen. Okay, that is the first question. Just know your reflections. Part B is another graph transformation. The curve C with the equation y equals 5 plus 2x minus x squared is transformed by a translation to give curve S, so that's C to S, so we're going that way, such that the point 1, 6 on C is mapped to 4, 6. So from 1 to 4, that's going 3 right. Can you quickly note the rules you need to remember? I will do that at the end. So then we know that we're doing a translation in x. And we know that the x1 behaves funny, it's illogical. So if we want to move 3 to the right, instead of adding 3, you want to subtract 3 from x. So just take your equation, and wherever you see an x, exactly f of x minus 3. Wherever you see that x, just put x minus 3 in brackets. So y equals 5 plus 2, and then I have my x. I'm going to turn that into an x minus 3. Continue minus, and I have x squared. That becomes x minus 3 squared. And that's your answer. Simple as that. You can expand it out if you want. They didn't ask for it. So just keep it as it is. Don't risk it. Don't waste your time. This is the answer to this question. And you can leave it as that. If you did expand it out, I'll just write down the answer for you guys. Here, I believe is y equals minus x squared plus 8x minus 10. I think so. But yeah, you can just keep it. You don't have to simplify it. No, unless it tells you, you don't need to. Here, it just says find an equation. This is an equation for s. So it works. So for this one, this is a translation in the x. I'm going through it one more time. This is a translation in the x direction, so it's an illogical one. So if you want to go 3 to the right, you have to subtract 3 from x. And then you just do it onto the x, so x minus 3 wherever you have an x. So the main translations you need to remember are the reflections. So you've got y equals minus f of x. So that's the whole y thing. So that's reflect in x-axis. Then you've got this one, which is reflect in the y-axis. Then you've got the translations in y. So that's like y equals f of x plus alpha. And then you need logical. Then you've got your stretches. Y equals alpha f of x for the y, and y equals f of x over alpha for illogical, for alpha being the same thing, for your x, because alpha is weird. So it's a fraction in this case instead of subtract. Thank you for the gift, Ion. I really appreciate it. Okay, so those are the main transformations you need to remember. Get familiar with those, do practice on them, draw them out. It's not too bad in the end. Okay. And I think this is the last question of the live stream for today. And it is a diagram question. Not too bad of a question, but it is kind of long. So I'm just going to let you guys read it for a second before I jump into it. You have to draw. I would recommend drawing it out. It helps. This is not too bad, Ahad. Don't worry, okay? So, it's not too much text, but such a long question comes from such long answer comes from such a short question. But it is actually pretty nice question in my opinion. Okay, C is a circle with a center at the origin. This makes life so much easier. A tangent to C, so a tangent, passes through these points. Work out an equation of C. It's fine, it just seems long. It is, but it is not too bad. So let's see. What I like to do is I like to draw it out just to visualize it. Even if it's like a simple question, always draw it out. It'll help make it clear so you know you've understood the question properly. So draw your axis at the top, and draw your circle, and the center is at the origin, which makes life so much easier. We know that it passes through the points 0, 10, right there, and negative 20, 0. I'll just do my tangent. We know that the tangent touches the circle at 1 point. So I'll do that, and then I'll annotate that's 10, and then that's negative 20. Obviously, is not to scale. It doesn't really matter. I can see some good things coming through in the chat. It is not negative. It is positive because we're going upwards. Positive gradient. So I need to find the equation of my circle. So what I can do is I can find the equation of the tangent, and the rule you need to know of tangent is the tangent meets the circle at a right angle to the radius, because that's my radius, and I know that that is 90 degrees. That is the one rule you should know. So that is your fact. I'm just going to write that down. Okay, so the equation of the tangent. We're going to figure that out first. So first we're going to find the gradient of the tangent, which is just, I'm going to do it the long way. So y1 minus y2 is 10 minus 0, divided by x1 minus x2, which is that, and that's equal to a half. You can also tell that that's a half there. So then there's two ways of working this out. The quick way, which is y equals mx plus b or c. So then that's y equals a half x, and we know the y-intercept is 10 because that's 0, 10. This is higher. This is the last question, and that's your equation. Alternatively, you could do y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, and then sub in like this. And this is how this method here is how you would do this if they did not give you this value of the y-intercept. So you just use this standard equation of the line and then sub in. So you've got your equation there of your tangent. So you need the equation of the radius. radius because I'm trying to find what this point where they meet, this point over here, I'm trying to find what that point is, because I know that the equation of a circle with a center origin is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. These I don't need to find. I need to find what r is, and if I find what this point is, then I can just find what r is using Pythagoras in the end. Where does m come from in the equation? M is the gradient. Don't know why I had to think. M is a gradient. And this is the way you find out a gradient. Okay, so the equation of the radius is just, it's perpendicular. So you need to know negative reciprocal for perpendicular lines. So I have a half as my gradient for the tangent. So the negative reciprocal is just -2. So then we have y equals -2x plus 0 because that goes through the origin. So that is that. Now I need to find where they meet. So they meet at a point, and it's a singular point, on the circle. So we need to find -2x equals a half x plus 10. Rearrange for x and solve for it. So subtract half x from both sides and get 10. And x equals -20/5, which is equal to -4. So I have found that x at this point is -4. I need to find my y value. How am I going to find that? Well, that's on the line of the radius, so I can use this one, it's easier. Y equals -2 times by -4, and that is going to be equal to 8. So that is 8 up there. So you've got a triangle with length 4 and length 8, and we need r. That is our radius. All we gotta do is do some Pythagoras. So r squared is going to be equal to 4 squared plus 8 squared. So that is going to be equal to this. So r is going to be equal to the square root of 4 squared plus 8 squared. 4 squared plus 8 squared is 80. So that's the square root of 80. And then I have got my equation of my circle at the top here. And I just have to sub in. X squared plus y squared equals r squared, which was r is the square root of 80. So r squared is just 80. And that is my answer to the final question. Squared plus y squared equals 80. And that is it. So it's actually not too bad. Just know your goal and then work it through by following the steps. It's just a lot to assess, but it is the final question. I appreciate the feedback, eh? Thank you so much. Where did I get the -2 from? -2 here, because that's the negative reciprocal of the gradient of the tangent, because they meet perpendicularly. Do I do level 2 further maths? I don't do it like for live streams, but a bunch of my videos do cover level 2 further maths content, so you can just sift through those and check. But yeah. How did you get 8 and -4 on the axis? Oh, I just substituted in my value. So the -4 I got because that's where this line and this line meet. And then we know that that -4 is on both of those lines. So I just substituted that into one of the equations and got the +8. Flip the fraction, put the minus. How can I remember this? For this one, draw it out. Drawing the picture first will help you get your clear path. And then they tell you you want an equation of C. So you write down this thing I wrote up here, x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And then you know you need to find what r is. That's it. So if you draw this picture and draw what r is, I'm going to do it in blue. You can see that this is r. How am I going to find what that is? Well, I need to just find that length, right? So I know that this line meets here, and you know the fact that a tangent meets a radius at 90 degrees. So you can just find the value, and you know that you've got a right angle triangle, and then you just find the silence and find r. It'll all unfold. Like, trust me, it'll come back to you if you draw the picture out. Where did I get -10 and -20 from? The values that they gave me up here. Let me just rub this up. 10 and 20 were the coordinates of A and B, or whatever points they gave me. I will see if I do another paper. I will post it on my account if I do another live stream for GCSE. Most likely I will be doing potentially an A-level live stream, so don't join that one if you're doing GCSEs. But yeah, I will let you know if I do a GCSE one. If not, on my YouTube channel, called a Yuzer as well, I have live streams that I did last year for GCSE too, so you can check those out where I did some different papers. This one should also hopefully be posted. Can't mess up on paper 2. My grade 9 will be in jeopardy. You gotta lock in. Like, just focus for these next few weeks and then enjoy a very long summer, guys. Where did you get the -8 and -4? -8 and -4 I got because I found the intersection of the two lines, this blue line there and this line here, because they intersect at a point. And then you just find what x is, then you find what y is to find the other. And the answer is down here. It is this thing, x squared plus y squared equals r squared, where r squared is 80. And this is higher. So that is a wrap on this paper. It was overall not too bad of a paper. There were some weird nuanced questions in there, in my opinion, minor tricks to look out for. But I'd say most of the stuff like could potentially come up in the next papers if they haven't already been assessed in your paper 1. I will let you know on the profile if I do another live for GCSE, but thank you everyone for joining. I hope you found it useful. Feel free to follow if you found it useful, and I shamelessly say that. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any questions, I'll hang around for like 2 more minutes before ending. But good luck in your exams, guys. The probability question, yep, short. Give me 1 second. Let me just scroll to it. Start, I finished. That's a wrap. I will post this on my YouTube channel so you can check it out there too. This is my very messy working out of the probability question. And then I'll show the tangents question afterwards. Yes, I'll show the last question afterwards. So that's the probability question. And then I will scroll down onto the last question, which is the tangents question. Just is not difficult, like in terms of problem solving wise, it's just a lot to remember and go through. No worries with saying MS. And yeah, you need to know how to do this sort of stuff. Geometry questions, they love giving geometry questions. They can very well be assessed. Especially for a calculator paper, there will be a lot more algebra. I don't understand how you get the equation of the circle. So the equation of the circle, you need to know 2 things. The equation of a circle with a center at the origin, that is a white pen. I was wondering why nothing was coming. Where the center of the origin is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And if the center is not the origin, is x minus a squared plus y minus b squared equals r squared, where a and b are the center. So just know those formulas, and then you substitute in. This is a higher question. This is never going to be a foundation question. This is a higher question, don't worry. All right, thanks for joining, everyone. I will let you know if I do another GCSE live before the exam on Wednesday. One more question. Can you go through what you do after you find the gradient of the radius? Sure. So after I found the gradient of the radius, I'll do this in a green pen so you can see. So the gradient of the radius is -2. So I just found the equation of my radius, which is y equals -2x, because that's the intersection at y is 0. And then I know that the radius meets my my tangent at one point. This is a bunch of topics. I'll tell you what topics this is afterwards. So it meets the tangent at one point. So I just find the intersection, just like finding the intersection of 2 lines by solving for x. And we know that the x value at this tangent is -4. So that's why I've annotated -4 onto my graph here. and I need to find the y value because I need to find what r is, because I've got a mini triangle, this one. So I find the y value by just subbing my x in to my equation for y, which I've done up here. So y equals minus 2 times by x, which is minus 4, and I get 8. So 8 is my y value there, and it's positive, so it makes sense. And then I need to just find what my r is. So r squared is equal to 4 squared plus 8 squared from Pythagoras, this. And then r is equal to the square root of 80. And now that I finally have my r, which is what I wanted for this equation, I just sub in, and then I get my equation of my circle. So this topic is equations of circles, straight lines and tangents, gradients, y equals mx plus c, reciprocals, negative reciprocals, Pythagoras, and intersections of lines. A lot of topics in this one. No worries, Liv. Okay, I'm gonna try and post this on my YouTube channel hopefully by the end of the night, so you can check it out there if you want a recording. But that is it for today. Thank you everyone for joining, and best of luck with your revision. Bye, guys.